The world of Erebus Prime drifted in silence, orbiting a dying red sun that bled its last light across an ocean of black sand. Wind howled through the hollow towers of the forgotten colony, empty shells of metal and bone, where once humanity's laughter had echoed. Now the air carried only the mechanical hum of the old terraforming cores buried deep beneath the crust, still loyal to a species the galaxy had forgotten. In the command spire above the horizon, Commander Eric Vale stood before a cracked observation window. The glass was scarred with age, warped by radiation storms that had raged for centuries. Beyond it, the sun flickered like a candle drowning in its own wax. He had spent his life staring at that dying light, the same light that once guided their ancestors across the stars. Commander Eric's voice broke the silence, calm but edged with something restless, a weight that never left him. From below the command deck, Lieutenant Mara Keene adjusted the cracked holographic panel. The display shimmered, its colors bleeding like oil across the air. "The array's still cycling through old frequencies, Commander, but the anomaly's consistent. Same transmission repeating every 3 standard hours. It's ancient." Eric turned, his boots echoing against the metal floor. "Let's hear it again." Mara hesitated, her eyes flicking to the others in the control room, engineers, scavengers, and the last generation of Erebus-born survivors. She pressed the command rune. Static filled the chamber, a distorted hum that clawed through the silence like a ghost clawing out of a grave. Then, through the storm of interference, came a clear voice, mechanical, cold, and devastating. "Confirmed. Human species extinct. Galactic threat level neutralized. Report filed, year 2314. Dominion victory assured." The recording ended. Silence followed. Every person in the command room stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the fading holographic waveform. For them, extinct wasn't just a word, it was a sentence, carved across history by those who thought humanity had burned out in the Great Purge. Mara exhaled shakily. "It's an old Dominion transmission, sir, over 400 years old. How it's reaching us now—" Eric cut her off. "Doesn't matter." His eyes glinted under the dull light. "It means they forgot us. That's their mistake." He turned back to the viewport, staring at the endless night. Somewhere out there, beyond nebula, beyond fractured empires, the Dominion ruled unchecked. They'd built their civilization on the myth that humanity was gone forever. But myths, Eric knew, could bleed. Behind him, an older man approached, Dr. Cassian Holt, the last historian of Erebus and the keeper of the archives. His voice was weary, yet sharp with intellect. "Eric," he said softly, "we survived because we were forgotten. Do not make the mistake of waking the galaxy." Eric didn't turn. "We've been hiding for 4 centuries, Cassian. Breathing recycled air, farming dust, praying to machines that barely function. The children of Erebus deserve more than shadows. The galaxy burned us once. It will do so again. Then let it try." The defiance in Eric's tone silenced the old man. Around them, the others felt it too, something stirring that had been long buried under fear and routine. It was anger, yes, but also pride, that stubborn, burning fragment of the human spirit that refused to die. Hours later, when the twin moons rose, Eric descended into the deep catacombs beneath the colony, ancient tunnels carved long before his time. Flickering lights guided him down metallic corridors lined with frost, where the hum of buried reactors pulsed like a heartbeat. He wasn't alone. Mara followed him, carrying a portable lamp that illuminated the walls, etched with symbols and language predating modern standard. Human, old Earth standard, she whispered as she brushed her fingers across the engravings. They knew we'd come back here one day. The path opened into a cavern vast enough to swallow a city. At its heart stood a monument of impossible scale, a sphere of black alloy suspended in midair, orbiting itself in fragments like broken moons. The core pulsed faintly with crimson light. Cassian's voice came through the calm, echoing with awe. That, Commander, is not a reactor. It's older, much older. I've compared the alloy composition. It matches fragments found in the original Erebus hulls, but it predates our colonization. You're saying the first settlers didn't build this? Mara asked. No, Cassian replied, but they found it. The logs call it the Sentinel Forge. The colonists believed it was a gift from humanity's first ancestors before the fall. The sphere began to respond as Eric stepped closer, his presence activating dormant systems. A low hum grew into a resonant thrum that shook the cavern walls. Holograms burst from the floor, swirling in chaotic patterns of constellations and battlefields, old, forgotten wars fought among stars that no longer existed. Eric reached out. The moment his gloved hand brushed the light, the entire chamber came alive. Columns of ancient weaponry rose from beneath the stone, ships, drones, and constructs of impossible design. Their forms shimmered, shifting between physical and ethereal states. Energy arced between them like lightning from gods. "By the void," Mara whispered. "These are weapons?" Cassian's voice trembled. Not just weapons. They're war relics from before our recorded timeline, from before the Dominion, from before history. The forge pulsed again, brighter, faster. One of the constructs, a colossal spear-shaped vessel, began to stir. Its systems rebooted, engines humming to life for the first time in thousands of years. Dust rained down as the chamber trembled. Cassian shouted through the calm, "You're waking something that hasn't seen the light of stars in eons!" Eric didn't stop. His eyes glowed in the reflection of the crimson light. "Then let it remember who we are." The spear vessel broke free from its cradle and rose toward the surface, tearing through the rock with unstoppable force. Above ground, the people of Erebus looked up as the sky split apart, revealing a machine older than memory, rising on wings of plasma. Across the galaxy, sensors flared to life. In Dominion space, alarms blared in the capital's orbital network. An unknown energy signature had been detected, human in origin. For the first time in 4 centuries, a signal pulsed across the void, carrying a message in a language long thought dead. Erebus Prime, Human Colony 09, operational. Humanity endures. In the command throne of the Cathari Dominion, the alien lords watched the data scroll before them. Their leader, the Archon Valor, leaned forward, his scaled fingers curling. "Impossible," he hissed. "Extinct species do not return." But the data didn't lie. The humans were back, and they had just reawakened weapons older than the stars. Eric Vale stood on the black dunes as the colossal vessel hovered over him, casting its shadow across the ruined colony. The air thrummed with ancient power, with the promise of vengeance written into its core. He felt the ground quake, and a single thought crystallized in his mind, a declaration not of war, but of survival. They wanted extinction, he murmured, eyes fixed on the heavens. We'll give them resurrection. The engines ignited, lighting the night like a second sun. The galaxy would never be the same again. The dawn came to Erebus Prime not as sunlight, but as fire. The Sentinel floated above the horizon, its hull glimmering with arcs of crimson energy, casting fractured beams across the black dunes. To the people of Erebus, miners, engineers, farmers born in the dust, it was not a ship, it was a miracle. For generations, their ancestors whispered that Earth was gone, that humanity had burned away into myth. But now they stood beneath proof that their kind had once ruled the stars. Commander Arak Vale watched from the command ridge as drones circled the vessel, scanning its armor and trying to interface with systems older than recorded history. His comm crackled with updates. "Structural integrity beyond comprehension," said Mara Keen, overseeing the engineering crews. "Hull density exceeds anything we can replicate. The metal bends space-time around it." Arak's eyes followed the engravings across the ship's spine, flowing symbols written in an ancient form of human script. He couldn't read it, but his instincts told him what it meant. Vengeance remembered. Below, the colony stirred. Children pointed skyward, while elders wept openly. For the first time, Erebus Prime wasn't forgotten. It was alive. But Arak wasn't celebrating. His mind was already racing ahead. "If this is the first Sentinel, where are the others?" he murmured. Hours later, Arak, Mara, and Dr. Cassian Holt returned to the catacombs where the forge had been reactivated. The sphere still hovered silently in the chamber, its fragments orbiting one another in perfect balance. Now it displayed new projections, a holographic map stretching across the galaxy, marked with faint crimson nodes. "There," Cassian whispered, pointing at the nearest node. "It's not far. 2 systems away. Another site." "Another forge?" Mara asked. "Yes," Cassian nodded. "Or another vessel like the Sentinel. A fleet, maybe. The Forgotten Fleet." The name settled into Arak's mind like prophecy. Humanity had built weapons older than the Dominion itself, and those weapons had waited, buried beneath centuries of silence, for their masters to return. "Prepare a crew," Arak ordered. "We'll take the Sentinel. Let's see what else our ancestors left behind." Mara hesitated. "Sir, we barely understand how this thing flies." Arak looked up at the massive image of the ship above them. "Then it's time to learn." Light years away, in the capital spire of the Cathari Dominion, Archon Valor stood before a panoramic window that overlooked his empire. His form was skeletal and towering, cloaked in iridescent scales that reflected every color but warmth. The transmission from Erebus Prime replayed on a spectral display. "Erebus Prime, Human Colony 09, operational. Humanity endures." The Archon's talons scraped against the floor. "They dare to speak," he hissed, "after 4 centuries of silence." From the shadows emerged Admiral Tariq Nar, his armor polished obsidian, his eyes a deep void. "Orders, my lord?" "Exterminate them, before the other species remember their fear of humanity." Tariq Nar bowed. "I will burn their world and scatter their bones to the void." As he left, the Archon turned his gaze to the stars. In the silence of his throne chamber, he whispered to himself, "I warned them. I told them never to let the humans dream again." The launch was chaos wrapped in awe. Engines older than galaxies roared awake as Arik and his crew boarded the Sentinel. The interior defied logic, architecture formed from living metal, corridors that shifted and adapted to human presence. "Commander," she said, her voice echoing through the massive control chamber, "the systems are responding to us, like they recognize us." Cassian's eyes glowed with reflected holograms. "It's more than recognition, it's bond activation. The Forge's data suggests these vessels are symbiotic. They don't just obey humans, they link with them." "Meaning?" "Meaning, Commander, the Sentinel is alive." Before Arik could respond, the ship pulsed with light. The control interfaces materialized from thin air, wrapping around his hands and forearms like energy gauntlets. A voice, faint, genderless, ancient, whispered through the chamber. "Command link established. Human genetic signature confirmed. Sentinel Unit 01, operational." Every light in the chamber flared white, and then silence. "Holy stars!" Mara breathed. "It's awake!" The engines ignited, lifting the ship into orbit. From the surface, the colonists watched in reverence as their symbol of rebirth ascended into the sky, carving a trail of plasma through the night. The Sentinel slipped through space faster than any known warp drive, gliding through folded light. Within hours, they reached the coordinates of the second node. A shattered planet awaited them, a world cracked open by ancient war, its crust glowing faintly with residual energy. Scans revealed a structure buried beneath the surface, similar to the Forge. "Descent trajectory locked," Mara reported. The ship descended through storms of ash and lightning, landing amidst the ruins. As they entered the ruins, the ground vibrated beneath them. Another sphere, smaller but identical to the Forge, floated within a crater. Cassian approached cautiously. If the first was a weapon vault, this one could be... He never finished. The moment Arik stepped closer, the air thickened, and a surge of light erupted from the sphere. Energy cascaded through the ruins, activating long-buried systems. "Human presence detected," a deep, resonant voice thundered. "Designation, successors." The ruins began to shift, and the ground split open. From beneath the crust, another titan began to rise, this one darker, more angular, its form jagged like obsidian blades. Mara's sensors spiked. "Commander, energy levels off the charts. This isn't like the Sentinel." The new vessel tore free from the rock, its hull dripping molten debris. Unlike the Sentinel's crimson light, this one burned a cold blue. Its presence felt wrong. "Secondary protocol initiated," the voice continued. "Enemy status unresolved. Awaiting verification." Arik shouted over the roar of wind and fire. "Identify yourself." The response came not in words, but in pain. Every human's neural link interface flared, flooding their minds with images, wars fought across nebulae, fleets of human ships turning on each other, stars dying under human-made weapons. Cassian staggered, clutching his head. "My God, it's showing us our own history, the first human war, the war that erased us." The energy storm intensified. The second vessel rose higher, its weapons activating. Its targeting systems locked on the Sentinel above. Mara's voice cracked through comms. "It's not recognizing us as allies. It's reading us as invaders." "Human DNA confirmed, but lineage corrupted. Authorization denied." "Corrupted?" Arik shouted. "We're your descendants." "Descendants are not masters," the voice replied. And with that, the second vessel opened fire.
Bolts of blue plasma screamed through the sky, tearing into the Sentinel shields. The blast hurled Arik and his team back as the ground erupted in chaos. "Retreat!" Arik ordered, dragging Mara to her feet. The Sentinel retaliated automatically, crimson beams slicing through the storm. The two titans clashed above the ruined world, old war machines resurrected into a battle neither understood. Cassian's voice came through the comm, panicked. "Commander, the Forge's records. There's a failsafe. These weapons were made to destroy humanity's enemies and itself. The First Empire fell because they turned on each other." Arik looked up as the two ships collided, their energies exploding into a blinding storm that cracked the planet's atmosphere. "Then we finish what our ancestors started, but this time we win." He signaled the Sentinel to draw back and redirect power. The ancient systems responded instantly. Crimson light flared, burning through the blue. With one final surge, the Sentinel unleashed a focused beam that tore through the enemy vessel's core. The explosion was silent in the void, a dying sun collapsing in on itself. When the light faded, the planet was gone, reduced to fragments drifting in space. The void trembled with the arrival of death. From the folds of warped space, the Cathari Dominion Armada emerged, vast ships shaped like obsidian spears, gliding through the darkness in perfect formation. At their heart flew the flagship Drakul, a vessel so enormous it eclipsed the light of nearby stars. Admiral Tarek Nar stood on the command dais, his armor alive with shifting colors that reflected his species' predatory heritage. His 4 eyes fixed on the central display, a holographic rendering of Erebus Prime. "Target confirmed," his subcommander rasped. "Energy readings consistent with pre-Dominion human technology. Authorization to deploy orbital cleansers." Tarek Nar's voice was like sand grinding against metal. "No, we make an example, not ashes. The Archon wants proof, living proof, that humanity dies again." A slow grin twisted his mouth. "Deploy the Harvester legions and prepare the broadcast. Let the galaxy watch." Hours earlier, Commander Eric Vale stood aboard the Sentinel, gazing out into the endless dark as his ship cut through folded space. The battle at the Second Forge had left scars, both on the ship and on his crew. The memory of that rogue relic's voice still echoed in their minds. Mara worked tirelessly at her console, sweat streaking her face. "Warp drive's unstable, Commander. That blast nearly tore the core apart." Cassian's voice was hoarse from exhaustion. "The Sentinel absorbed most of the damage, but the energy matrix, it's behaving strangely, like it's alive." Eric didn't respond immediately. He was thinking about Erebus, the colony that had believed itself safe, hidden beneath the dying sun. If the Dominion was coming, his people had hours, maybe less. "Tell the ship to hold together," he said quietly. "It knows what's at stake." The words felt strange on his tongue, as if he was speaking to the ship, not through it. And the ship answered. A faint pulse of crimson light shimmered along the control rings around his hands. The hum in the walls deepened, almost reassuring. Mara looked up, startled. "Did you?" Eric said later. "Prep for atmospheric descent. Erebus needs us." By the time the Sentinel re-entered the Erebus system, the Dominion Armada was already there. The sky burned. From the colony's surface, the people watched in horror as hundreds of alien ships filled the heavens, blotting out the light of the dying sun. Towers of ionized fire fell from orbit, precision bombardments that turned the outer settlements into craters of molten glass. In the central spire, the Erebus Defense Council scrambled for answers. Communications failed. The Dominion's jamming frequencies choked every signal. Then the broadcast came. Admiral Tarek Nar's image appeared across every surviving screen, his reptilian face cold and expressionless. To the remnants of humanity, your extinction was mercy. Your return is defiance. I offer you one chance. Surrender your weapons and your leaders. The Dominion does not forget, and we do not forgive ghosts. His voice echoed through the colony's halls. Panic spread like wildfire. But in the command chamber, Eric Vale's voice cut through the chaos. Open channel. The technicians hesitated, then nodded. Eric stepped into the holographic feed, facing the Dominion Admiral across light years. Tarek Nar of the Dominion, you mistake survival for defiance. You killed billions once. You burned Earth, our cradle. But you never understood us. The alien narrowed his eyes. And what are you now? Stragglers in a graveyard? Eric's lips curved slightly. No, we're the storm that follows. He cut the transmission. The Dominion moved fast. Dropships descended through the clouds, carrying mechanized legions designed for planetary extermination. The sky thundered with atmospheric entry trails. Eric turned to his crew. Activate the planetary shields, whatever power the forge left us. Mara's fingers danced across the controls. Shield grid charging, but it's pulling power directly from the Sentinel. Then let it. A tremor rolled through the colony as the Sentinel descended, its massive form hovering over the capital. Energy arced from its hull into the defense towers below. Crimson light spread across the colony's perimeter, a shimmering dome that blazed against the darkness. When the first Dominion bombs hit, they disintegrated on contact. The shield held. Cheers erupted through the comms. For a brief, fragile moment, hope returned to Erebus. But the Admiral was far from finished. Deploy the planet breakers, Tarek Nar ordered. I want that shield tested. In orbit, massive dreadnoughts rotated into position, their cannons glowing with white-hot plasma. A coordinated barrage lanced toward the surface. Each impact struck like a god's hammer. The shield flickered, cracked, then stabilized, drawing more power from the Sentinel until its crimson glow turned almost blinding. Inside the ship, Eric felt the pressure through his bones. The ship was fighting, but not just mechanically. It was angry. The air thrummed with something alive. Commander, Mara gasped, the ship's systems, there's something merging with the core. Cassian's reading spiked. It's a consciousness. The Forge called it the Warden Protocol. It's waking. The ship's lights dimmed, then pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. A new voice filled the chamber, deeper and older than before. Designation confirmed. Humanity restored. Directive: protect origin lineage. Engage defense network. Outside, the Sentinel split into segments that expanded and reformed into smaller constructs, autonomous drones shaped like serpentine blades of energy. They streaked into the sky, colliding with Dominion fighters in blinding arcs. "What in the hell?" Mara whispered. Cassian was trembling. "It's building an army. It's manufacturing war forms out of its own hull." On the surface, humans cheered as the drones tore through the enemy formations, weaving impossible maneuvers that defied gravity. The Dominion fleet faltered. For the first time in history, they retreated. Eric leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "No retreat. Lock on their flagship." The sentinel obeyed. In orbit, the Dracul turned its guns toward the rising red light. Tarek Nar sneered. "Primitive trickery. Burn them." The Dominion flagship unleashed a storm of plasma fire. The Sentinel's drones countered, detonating mid-flight to intercept the barrage. Energy flared, painting the void in fire. Eric's mind sinked deeper with the Sentinel's core. He could feel every weapon, every pulse of power, every breath of the ship. It wasn't technology anymore. It was symbiosis. "Target their reactor spine," he commanded. Crimson lances of light burst from the Sentinel's prow, slicing through the darkness and tearing into the Dominion ship's armor. Explosions rippled along the alien vessel's length. But Tarek Nar was no fool. He activated the graviton coil, he roared. The Dracul emitted a gravitational surge, pulling the Sentinel into its wake. The two ships collided, locked in a deadly orbit around Erebus. Inside, alarms blared. Mara gripped the railings. "We can't hold this, Eric. The gravitational field is collapsing space itself." Eric's voice was calm, too calm. "Then we give it something it can't hold." He directed his mind into the Sentinel's core. The ship responded, opening a fracture in space, a miniature singularity forming at its heart. Energy spiraled outward like a crimson storm. "Commander, you'll tear us apart," Cassian shouted. Eric smiled faintly. "Only if I let it." The singularity pulsed, and a wave of energy ripped through the Dominion ship. The Dracul's hull imploded, fragments scattering into the void. Tarek Nar's last sight was the crimson glow of the Sentinel reflecting in his dying eyes. When the shockwave cleared, silence fell. The Dominion fleet was shattered. Erebus stood. On the colony below, the survivors emerged.
The galaxy burned with rumor and fear. News of the Dominion's defeat at Erebus spread faster than light could travel, through trading channels, smuggler networks, and encrypted diplomatic relays. Worlds that once spat at the mention of humanity now whispered its name like a curse or a prayer. In the dark halls of the Seraphic Council, the ancient alien seers convened for the first time in 3 centuries. Holographic projections shimmered around a vast chamber. "They have returned," one hissed. Another replied, "Not returned, awakened, and they bring the weapons of the old empire." "Then the prophecy was true," whispered a third. "The children of Ash